it was time to actually invest in some bricks and mortar and be able to grow our export business. So we purchased a 110,000 square foot building in Bridgeport, New Jersey. And again, it was a situation where Cardinal Health, who owned the building, was building a new facility. We negotiated a $10 million deal down to 3 because they just needed to get out of it. And after a year of negotiation, we walked into a warehouse that was fully equipped and ready to go for us. So now we've got 3 facilities. And then this was about 2003. As we really began to look at our competition at that point in time and taking the next step, we recognized that we were starting to, our competition was catching up with us, is what was happening. We were busy doing a lot of other things, doing some seafood and doing some distribution, and we looked at our competition and they started to really catch up to us. They started having some innovation teams and putting some culinary groups together and some R&D. Now they were still in these very, very old, small facilities, so we did have certainly a leg up on them from that standpoint. But we really needed to make a decision at that point in time that was going to be long-lasting. What is going to give us the edge that we need to be able to be a billion-dollar company? What is it that we could do that they couldn't do? Or maybe they didn't want to do? Well, it was only one thing, and that was to take both our meat and our seafood operations and get them as vertically integrated as possible. So from 2004 to 2005, we spent an awful lot of time understanding the live cattle business and the live fish business. Because remember, everything we dealt with at that point was dead, right? It's just pieces of meat. So we needed to understand the live section. So I spent 3 months in Uruguay, understanding how they raise their cattle. Because in Uruguay, they raise cattle much differently than we do here in the States. Totally all natural, all pasture fed. Don't have any antibiotics, no steroids, no hormones. And I was interested in that aspect of it because as I look at our customer base, I see our customer base getting more and more educated. Well, our educated consumers are starting to ask questions, you know, where's my food come from? What's in my food? You know, what's the wholesomeness, humaneness? That's why places like Whole Foods do so well today, because we get educated customers who are concerned about it. So I spent about 3 months in Uruguay. Really got a very good understanding. But there was one real problem in Uruguay, and that was versus what we had here in the States. We couldn't get these animals to the right size. Now, animals in this country, cattle, when they're harvested or slaughtered, are about 1,400 pounds. In Uruguay, they couldn't get them more than about 900 pounds. And there's a reason, because they were not giving them steroids, they weren't giving them hormones, weren't giving them antibiotics, right? But now I got a smaller animal versus a larger animal. I have the same amount of work that goes into cutting it, fabricating it, killing it, packing it, but I got a lot less yield. I got 20% less yield, so my cost is going to go up. So that didn't work. So the first thing I had to do was I tried to identify how to get those cattle bigger. So I went to the University of Montevideo, talked to one of their ag professors there. I took him out to the feed yards. And we decided, I got one group of farmers that decided they would allow us to take their cattle into a feed yard. Now, feed yards were unheard of in Uruguay. What a feed yard is, you know, you see cattle grazing out in pastures. Well, they'll do that for about 13 months of their life, but then the last 3 to 5 months, they're put into a feed yard. A feed yard is just big, giant pens, and they're given rations of high moisture corn diet, alfalfa, hay, potatoes, beans, and that's what gets them fat, right? That's what gets them to be big. That's what gets them the marble inside. That's what gets a really great piece of meat. And make no bones about it, United States, beef that comes from the United States is the most sought after beef in the world. There's no beef like it from a tasting standpoint or a tenderness standpoint. So I have these cattle that are really raised great, right? Great conditions, no hormones, no antibiotics, but I couldn't get them to grow. So I brought this ag professor out and we started looking at these pens. Now you have to realize these pens are, you know, 50 yards by 50 yards by 50 yards by 50 yards, and there's usually about 200 animals in it. And you can imagine animals all day, between excrement, urine, the areas that they're in, it's just not a great condition, right? So the first thing he said to me is, you know, we got to make these animals comfortable, right? We got to make them more comfortable. So we took the pens, and in the very center of the pens, we built mounds about 15 feet high, and we covered them with hay. And immediately, the animals at night would go up on the mounds because it was nice and dry, it was clean and it was dry, and they would lay and they would sleep. And there was a thought process he had, and the thought process he had was, if you can make them comfortable, they'll eat more. If they eat more, they'll get fatter. If they get fatter, they grow to the weight we need. So believe it or not, within 3 months, we had those 900-pound animals up to 1,000 pounds. Picked up 100 pounds, 100 pounds in weight, just by making them more comfortable. I went back down after 3 months, and we attacked their diet. We said, what is it that we can give them in feed to get them to eat some more? Because they're only eat what's in front of them. Well, it's a simple philosophy. If they like what they eat, maybe they'll eat more. So we went to a winery, lots of great wineries and vineyards in Uruguay, and took dry grape skins. We asked them to lay them out on a tarp, a black tarp, and they dried them out for about 3 days. We went back, filled up the back of the pickup truck, brought them, and started sprinkling them in their troughs. And in 3 months, the 1,000 pounds went to 1,200 pounds. And no hormones, no steroids, no antibiotics. Just made them comfortable, gave them great feed, and they got fat. Never got them above 1,200 pounds because that's about as far as that breed would go, but it became very successful for us. I then spent 3 months in Australia.